Welcome back to New Realities. This is another exciting program I'm doing with Sheila Seppi as preparations. We're gearing up for the big walk-in conference that is coming up January 8th and 9th. And we have a really special guest today who understands the importance of this work in normalizing what Sheila has called the cosmology of the soul. So Sheila, why don't you introduce Bridget and read that great introduction you had just read to me about her work. So yes.
Well, I have to say, in our life, we come across people and we think, oh, that person's really nice. That person's really great. Wow, they got a special story. But when I met Bridget, it was like, and it's like, oh, we're texting all the time. And it's just kind of like, we're cut from the same cloth. So let me give you this introduction about Bridget. She's a starseed, a channel, a multidimensional medium, and galactic peace ambassador. She holds frequencies of unity consciousness and grounds them into the human experience. Love that. As an ascension contact specialist, she communicates with the higher realms, assists others to expand those innate connections within themselves. Her mission includes normalizing the conversations and the perceptions around interdimensional, extra-dimensional, ultra-dimensional, and extraterrestrial beings. So wow, Bridget, I know that you have a lot going on in your life. And when you say it includes normalizing the conversation, you're also continuing to have these conversations with your team, to make visits onto the ships, etc. Wow, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and all of the excitement in your life?
Hello. Yes. Well, I spend a lot of time doing service work on Clubhouse, and Clubhouse is an audio-only drop-in app. And I co-create a club within that app with 5 other activated starseeds. And really, we normalize these conversations. So we speak about everything from ascension to, interdimensional, extra-dimensional, ultra-dimensional, and extraterrestrial beings, which I like to just give them a short name as star family or star beings. Because, as we're awakening, we're in this monumental period of humanity's evolution and consciousness, right? So as we're awakening, more and more, we're going to remember who we are. That message has been ringing out from the cosmos for over a decade now. And it's just like on repeat, remember who you are, remember who you are. And so as we're bringing more of our soul light into our human experience, which is what consciousness expansion is in my perception, as well as awakening, we are remembering that we are not just from Earth, that all of us are what we would call the label of starseed, right? So more and more people are coming online with this. They're curious. The word starseed holds codes and frequencies of awakening for many people. So that's what I do. But I'm also an awakening and ascension mentor and a beyond quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, which means we travel all over the place, right, in consciousness. And I do that on my own. My team started taking me on consciousness traveling journeys when I was in my teens, where we would just go all over the universe. So, but I wasn't activated as a starseed until an adult, when I had 2 contact experiences with 2 very different beings over a period of 3 hours. So one, and then 3 hours later, another one. And that shifted and rearranged my entire world.
Can you tell us that story? Because I love these starseed encounter stories. So could you share that?
Yeah. So I was heavily meditating during this period. I go through periods where I just want to meditate constantly. And so at this time, I had the intention of following a guided meditation, 3 different guided meditations that were 45 minutes long. But in between, I play, right? Because that raises my vibration. It gets me into a joy state. And I find when we are in a joy state during meditation, we actually go higher and expand further. So I was playing for 30 minutes. For me, that looks like singing, dancing. And I think that night it was hula hooping. And then I went into a 45-minute meditation. And as soon as I go in that deep with meditation, my third eye is just wide open. So when my eyes are closed, I see everything, right? And on the third meditation, I had a house at that time that had like really tall ceilings, and the whole upstairs on half of the house was like my office and things. And I hear this weird thud up there, but you can imagine hearing a thud. The problem with that is, well, not the problem, but the funny thing about that is I was wearing noise canceling earbuds for the first time. So I didn't realize that I wasn't going to be able to hear that, right? So I just thought, oh, that's one of my cats jumping down off my desk or something. And then I just years of meditation, you just redirect your attention focus back to what you're doing, right? So it's just like a split focus that comes back. And so I hear this weird sound, like a crackling and a boom, and it was almost like electricity, and then this zing sound that sounded metallic, and then another kind of boom sound and a thud. And it was all the way, seconds apart, all the way across the entire length of my house. And I was like, interesting, and then direct my attention and focus back to my meditation. Just so funny and so me, right? Most people would be like, what is that? And I'm like, no, let's focus on the meditation. So I hear it the next time, and it's, of course, it's the same series of what I know to be interdimensional barrier crossing and travel within our dimension, right? And I see a color, and it's like this orangey brown color. And I'm like kind of like that color of leather that everybody's wearing right now, or has been wearing rather. And it just ping pongs downstairs. There's still a thud. And I'm like, wait, we have a slab downstairs, so there's no thuds, and I'm looking with my third eye, right? My physical eyes are closed, and I'm looking with my third eye, and I'm kind of propped up on my sofa in my living room, and it ping pongs around. And finally it goes back upstairs on the other side of my fireplace, which is kind of facing this way to me. And I'm like, what in the, well, I'll probably say it, but I said, what in the H is that? Right? Because I was like, what is this? And all of a sudden I hear the sounds and see the colors streaking toward me. And she pops in. I feel the dimensional barrier, kind of like when you move through the membrane, there's a specific feeling to it. So I feel that happen, and I'm looking, and she leans over me, and she's beautiful energy. This energy just overwhelmed me in such a gorgeous way. And she leans over me and starts communicating telepathically, is what I call it, consciousness communication. And she's like, hi. And I'm like, oh, hi, because I was like, this is not what I expected, right? And I'm like, we start having this conversation. Meanwhile, I'm studying her face, and I'm just like immersed in her energy. And there was a point in the communication where I lost my identity. And it was almost like when you're meditating, it was very similar to when you're meditating and you feel this I am presence, the isness, where you're just everything and nothing all at once. It felt like that. And I enjoyed it because her energy felt like the most magical, like fine, high, it was like if you put all of our positive states of emotion, states of being into one being and then amped them up, like really, really high, fine frequencies. And so it felt delicious. Honestly, it felt so good. So I was like, okay, so I just had some communication with her, and she was sending me visuals, and we were talking. And then I had this moment of, I bet if I open my physical eyes, she'll be standing right here. But as soon as it was almost like the intention of that thought came into my mind, I began to open my eyes, and I felt the dimensional shift, and she was gone. And I was like, oh, I guess maybe I wasn't ready to see her in physical form. I don't know. But immediately, I was shocked. I wasn't scared, but I was immediately recognizing that my belief constructs were shifting, right? Like my belief systems were shifting. And I knew this was an enormous shift within my reality. And of course I ran in to tell my husband. And then I think I called my mother and my best friend, Everett. And I was just like, I just saw an extraterrestrial, like in my living room. And they were used to me. All my friends and family are used to me talking about strange things. So it was a stretch for some of them, but for others not. And everybody knows about this in my world. So then 3 hours later, I'm still adjusting, right? I'm feeling things shift within me, within my consciousness. I'm feeling expansion happen, and I'm feeling all of the layers of shifting going on that, I just didn't know what to expect. I go to get in bed, and I'm adept. I've been communicating with beings from birth, right? So I am very adept at interdimensional communication, but generally it had been with, entities or beings of light or, so I thought, right? I have an entire collective that I communicate with. And it began with angelic beings and high guides and my high self. And then as I got older, other beings within the collective, like groups within the collective, would introduce themselves to me, right? So like the ascended masters, elementals, and then this, this entire group is about to be revealed. So little teaser there. So I'm getting in bed, and I'm in bed, and I feel a being kind of standing off up against one of my walls. And I'm like, who are you? What do you need? Right? That's like my first question. Like, who are you? What do you need? And so this being didn't reply. And in fact, it was hiding, and it had this energy of like, moving into itself and camouflaging in. And I was like, no, who are you? And it wasn't answering. And I'm like, this is strange, because usually they answer, right? They are compelled to answer. So it continued to try to make itself more invisible, and it felt really small. And I could kind of sense energy wise where it was, right? So I look on the other side of the veil, like the veil where people who no longer have a body will go and spend some time. So I look on the other side of the veil, not there. I look back on this side, not there, because sometimes they'll hop back and forth if they're trying to hide for some reason. And so then I'm like looking in the center of the veil, the other side of the veil, and this side all at the same time. And I'm like, you're not in the veil. And so I'm like, you're in my room. And so I do this deep dive energetically and just, expand all my feelers up. And it's still trying to camouflage even more. And so I start to see an energetic outline of the being, and it has the shape of a gray. According to my team, hindsight, there are lots of different races that have that body style, but it took that shape. But the most interesting thing started to happen. It's like my thoughts went nuts. They started, like, all of these like really intense, like fear-based thoughts just started pouring into my brain, which is really unusual for me, because I don't spend a lot of time, my entire life actually, I haven't spent a lot of time in fear. So I'm like, what is going on? And I'm doing the tools that I know to do, right, to kind of calm the storm and allow it to move through. And it's getting worse and worse and worse, like just more and more and more intense. And so being me, when I was little, the first thing I would reach for were the angelics when something would scare me, right? So that still evidently happens as an adult. And so I called Michael. And generally when they come in for me, if I'm afraid, they come in, and there's 4 of them. And the last angel comes to me wherever I am and soothes me, right? So what generally happens when the angelics come in to push something out that is lower vibratory is their energy just ushers it out, right? And then Michael goes and does whatever he does with whatever's happening next. And then the other angels do whatever they need to do, and the one soothes me. Well, that's not what happened. So the 2 of them begin to have a conversation, and it's the first time I've ever had that happen in my entire life. So I was like, what is happening? So it's like this Charlie Brown conversation, because I could feel kind of what was going on, but I couldn't hear it in English words. And I love to do this. So it was like in the booming angel voice, like, ba, 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 like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then the little one's like, wah, wah, wah. And it was like this tiny little, like, energetic, right? And then, Michael's like, ba, 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 ba. And the little one's like, wah, 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 and it was this whole conversation. And then at the end, I start to realize, oh man, I failed a test, right? And not that it's a real test, but in my life, if I hold a specific, reaction to something, or non-reaction, neutrality, then I get more of it, right? So with certain things that are really expansive for me. So I started to realize, oh no, this could have been something where I could have actual physical contact more and more. But now I know that it's going to be a little bit before that happens again, where it's physically in my world because of the fear reaction. So, of course, he has this little like ducks his head, all sad. And he's like turns around and walks away like a sad little kid, right? As he's leaving. And then my angel, and I'm like, crap, I just failed a test, didn't I? And she's like, hush. She's like, we can talk about this in the morning sleep. And that they usually put me to sleep whenever I've been in a fear state. So the next few days were very intense. My entire world shifted. I had so much anxiety and fear and all of these things that I was not adjusted to and not used to being in. It kind of gave me some perspective of how a lot of people live on Earth. But aside from that, when I finally did get answers from my team, because sometimes they'll give me a little bit to try to figure things out on my own before they answer. And when I finally did get answers, they said, as humans, we frequency match. This is something that we do, and I'm very aware of it. But they said I had frequency matched with the first being. And then that had brought all of my low-hanging fruit within my consciousness, the things that no longer serve me, up to the surface. And then the second being was programming, a programmed fear response from the collective, humanity. And what we have been playing in with the control aspects, right? So it was bringing all of this to the surface. And that one thing that I do in this life is I clear for the collective as well as I'm clearing for myself. We all do, right? I just focus intentionally on doing it, right? Very consciously. So I realized that, and then I'm like, okay, I'm in. Whenever we're clearing for the collective, I'm like,
let me
let's
just
do it.
ask
That's
you,
yeah.
Bridget, no, I think you brought up a good point, because how do you know it's your stuff and your fear, or it's some programmed fear, and maybe it's all programmed fear because there's nothing to fear? So how do you distinguish, and how did you get beyond it? This is really key, I think.
So for me, it doesn't really matter if it's mine or the collective, because we are all in oneness. We just forget. We're playing in the illusion of separation and forgetting, right? So, and we're coming out of those illusions. We are essentially deflating them right now. So what it does for me when they tell me that I'm clearing for the collective is it just gives me that extra incentive, right? So what I've learned since then, because this was many years ago, but what I've learned since then is I just clear for the collective every time I clear for myself, across all time, dimension, space, and reality, throughout all heritage and ancestral lineages. And that is on Earth and beyond, right? So for the higher realms, time doesn't exist the same as it does here. So we've already done this. And this can get a little timey-wimey, right? Like for those of you that are Doctor Who lovers. But, it all exists simultaneously, right? So our past, our present, and our future are all happening now. So, but for the human experience, we have a linear time construct that we use here. So for me, clearing, for me is all about allowing it to come up, and then just seeing what it's requesting of me. Sometimes it's requesting some focus and some attention, definitely love. Sometimes it's integration. Sometimes it's just the light of my awareness, right? So when I'm going through it, of course it's intense, right? When you're clearing anything, there's an intensity to it. And I am like everyone else with that. I just allow myself to dive deep, and then I come back up, and then I dive deep, and then I come back up. And this is my rhythm, right? So each of us, our experiences are unique. So there might be something that works for one person, and maybe something a little bit different will work for someone else. But I think it just depends on what it is. And in that case, I was clearing all kinds of things all at the same time. And also shifting and releasing beliefs. So the way I view life is that our inner world, our inner reality, is directly reflected in our external reality. So for me, when I see something in my external reality, I understand that it's a reflection for me to show me that I'm holding something within my consciousness, right? And if it feels good, then it's like a, good job, that's kind of how I perceive it. And then if it doesn't feel good, it's like, let's take a look at this, right? So I try not to put a lot of judgment on these things. I try to keep it very neutral. Because I find that where we put our time, attention, thought, energy, focus, and intention and emotions, right, is what we add energy to. So if, something is reflecting back to me, my first question is, is this showing me something about me? Is this a message, right? Like from my high self to me through my external reality? And clearing is a lot like that, right? So you see the things come up. Maybe you're feeling triggered, maybe you're feeling, a lot of an emotional charge with something. Then you look at it and see, okay, is this layered, right? Because usually it is. It's usually, like layers and layers stacked on top of each other of experience that has brought us to the point of the emotional charge. But then for me, I just look and say, okay, what is this, first of all? And we have the ability to receive all the answers that we need just by focusing on, a question, right? And then remaining open for the answer. And it'll come in various different types of ways. For me, I'm pretty practiced at this. So I get an understanding and knowingness, often like a memory that replays, or a series of memories, because I've just done this so long. But when you first start, it could come through, a situation that comes up that aligns with whatever you're trying to clear again, to give you an idea of, oh, this is the type of situation that I created this belief in, right? And then the stories that I've told myself to solidify this belief within my reality are connected in this way. And then these stories created this unconscious and conscious patterning in my life. To where I'm actively choosing this thing over and over and over again, but it's time for me to release it and move beyond it because it's no longer a vibrational match for who I am right now.
You're very evolved. So a lot of people have fear. Let's just take the typical, especially because we're dealing with this realm of ETs. They're afraid of ETs for whatever reason. Maybe they'll be abducted, taken against their will. They have a projection or idea. Now, they can't see the big picture like you can. So what do you say to these people who are dealing with this immediate fear of this unknown reality?
Well, first I would say, I'm this next week, I'm going to put a contract nullification and releasal on my blog, on my website, which is Bridget, Bridget, Renee with 2 E's, Renee, holiday with 2 L's.com. If you are having an experience with any of the star beings who you're not sure if they're for your highest and best good, my team says that there are specific groups of beings who are on the guest list. They use that because I used to spend a lot of time in clubs when I was younger, but who are on the guest list and approved to have direct contact with humanity right now. But we can unconsciously invite other beings in unknowingly, and they may not come to us, they may go to someone else. So if you feel like you're actually having an experience with a being who does not have your highest and best good at heart, from a higher perspective, there's probably a reason for it. But we also have free will here. So if you are in one of those situations, I highly recommend it. I'll say today, I'll have it up tomorrow. So if you're viewing this, what is that, the 16th of December?
Yeah.
So I'll make sure that it's up. I'll put it up sometime tomorrow on the 16th of December if you're viewing this afterwards, if you're viewing a replay. But you can request and you can essentially nullify any contracts that have been made. And that is an agreement that has been made. And sometimes with some of these beings, and these are only beings that are in the 3rd and lower 4th dimension that would do things like that with a human. Anyone in the upper 4th and 5th dimension and above actually understand themselves in oneness and unity. So they're not going to be doing things that are causing, physical harm in an intentional way. I've heard a lot of stories on Clubhouse from experiencers who are having experiences with beings, or who were, hopefully they're not anymore, but with beings who are malicious. That's a very intense word because I don't like to really speak like that, but they're just not They're not nice. Let's just say that. I'll put it really simple, like a little kid. They're just not nice. But if you're having experiences that you don't understand, and it's not like, kind of a torture type of experience for you, then you can ask them to help you expand your consciousness to understand what's happening. So there's a communication that can happen between us. They communicate in consciousness communication, which is what I call it. So it's like telepathic ability, empathic ability, and then layers of other things. So like, our psychic abilities and things like that, right? And obviously they have telekinesis and other things like that too. But they naturally are born that way, right? So they don't have to learn how to communicate. Most races, I would say, they're naturally born with the ability to communicate on such a very deep level. So our form of communication is quite primitive to them, a lot of them. And those that have been, interacting with humanity for a long time and have had starseeds coming here for a while, understand us a bit more, right? And then there are some races that are learning through their star seeds that are here. And often what I've found is that this type of communication is actually your own star people, your own star family, who is coming in to check up on you, to, maybe adjust your physical energetics and, to do testing. A lot of us have agreed to be in programs with, various races of beings because we hold those frequencies. We have lives with them. So we've agreed to do specific programs that are actually benefiting, many different races throughout the cosmos, not just our universe, right? So if you're suspecting that you are, in a program, ask about it. If you can calm yourself. So the fear is, I think, in a fight or flight for a lot of people, but also it's a fear of the unknown and not knowing, not having an understanding that this is something you agreed to before you came into the human experience. The veil of forgetting, kind of erases that sometimes. But these experiences, and also one thing that my team's bringing through right now is some of these races have a reflective quality to them. So if we are fighting and in fear, they meet our energy to show us exactly what we're doing. So if we can calm ourselves, and you can request for soothing energy from them. If we can calm ourselves down, then their energy shifts too, because our energy is really, I don't know how to describe it. For some of them, it's quite toxic when we go into the fight or flight, which is, and also quite dangerous for them physically because we are stronger than some of them physically. So oftentimes they'll immobilize the body and they'll calm the emotions. But if they're not doing that, you can request for that, right? And then you can ask for someone to come in to give you answers about what is happening. And you can use things like, it is my divine sovereign free will that I receive answers about what we are doing together. And
Right.
What is my role in this?
I
Using
just
your sovereign
realized
free will, they'll honor it.
No, I just want to say, and I hope Sheila jumps into that. These beings are not greater than us on a soul level, and we are actually equal to them on the level of consciousness. We just have not learned how to use our consciousness. So what this interaction is really a training to meet them on the level where they are at. If we're going into fear, it means, and they can't do anything to us without kind of faking us out, going over, what we are, because it's like we can confront these beings or meet them on an even playing field. And when we know that, there's nothing to be afraid of.
Exactly.
What do you think, Sheila?
Yeah, well, there was two things. First, I wanted to mention that I know that one time when I received a visitation, apparently there was a lot of fear coming from me. And they very clearly said, you don't have to go with us now. And I'm like, no, I really want to go. I really want to go. I'm just freaked out, kind of thing. And so, you can connect with them and communicate what your needs are at the time. The other thing I wanted to ask you, Bridget, is where do you see this fitting in with, whether you want to call it just walk-ins in general or the walk-in program that's out there?
Yes. Good question.
Interesting. So walk-ins are my innate knowingness. Walk-ins are revered because walk-ins come in not at the beginning of a human experience, but they come in, well, some of them do, I guess. My team just said some do, but they come into situations often. And I would say probably more often than not being a walk-in, I don't have this personal experience with it, but like you do, Sheila, but they come into situations that are desperate, and they come in to shift the energetics, but also, they're a different soul, essentially, right? So they come into a life that isn't theirs and doesn't match with their frequency, and they have to rearrange their entire life, right? And then, often get the physical back into a working condition. So my understanding of walk-ins innately on a higher knowing aspect is that we revere those of you that come in and do this because you're so strong and you're so, like, you have so much love. And the human experience, along with the rest of the cosmos, is a symphony, right? So there's a symphony playing out in all of this, in a oneness aspect that we have forgotten, but we still hold the frequencies of, right? So when a walk-in comes into a life that had a plan, right? It's a second plan, right? And it's an opportunity to help humanity expand our consciousness and raise our frequency even more. So there's often this big mission, at least with the walk-ins that I know. There's a deep calling and a big mission, almost larger than life. And it's like you come in, you fix, you repair, you fix, you do whatever you need to do with your physical, right? And then you're like off to the gates, Not, I mean, obviously there's integration time, but it's like a lot of us, we've slowly moved into our mission, and my sense is that walk-ins, they just know, right? They know what they're here to do, and sometimes that's with other humans, and sometimes it's with the earth itself, or other things. At least the walk-ins that I know, they're kind of across the board, much like all of the star beings out there. Our focuses are in very different places depending on what council it is. So yeah, I think where I come in with this is to help normalize the conversations about this, just like I do with, the star beings as well, and star seeds, right? So, this is a love, an act of love, right? And an act of deep love. Sometimes I think, humans, we don't really understand all the various forms of love that are out there yet. We're learning, we're remembering, I should say. But this is a particular type of love that comes through that is revered, right? It takes
We'll
a big, huge heart.
Talk about that a little more, because I think that's a really beautiful way of putting it. How this is love. How does this, why do you consider this a form of love?
Because they're coming into one of the most often, and I'll say often because I'm generalizing here, but what I'm receiving is that they're coming into some of the most intense human experience, and some of them have not been human before. So I'm receiving that right now, that it's their first time being human. So you can imagine not growing up here in this experience and coming in. We're trained, and we've trained lifetimes for what we're here to do on Earth, right? So there's not a human on the planet that doesn't hold mastery of mastery of mastery of mastery of mastery in many different lives, both on, within the human experience and beyond, right? So walk-ins come in with that as well, but they have, what I'm receiving now is they have different, their specializations, their geniuses, their masteries are kind of pointed in particular directions for the walk-in experience, right? It's almost like if we're tuning into radio stations, right? So their frequencies are pointed in a specific way for this. But also they're saying that that's not always the case for them outside of the walk-in experience, right? So they're bringing in masteries and frequencies that are really, just like, there's so many layers to this ascension process, right? Starseeds bring in frequencies. If you ask me, every person on the planet is a starseed. It's just most people haven't necessarily woken up to it. And and remembered who they are. But walk-ins bring in specific frequencies into the ascension process, and it's almost like customized for this, right? Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I really agree with that. And I do believe that everyone on the planet is a star seed, and some would consider even angelic realms as being a star seed. It's just in a different dimension. Ultradimensionals, interdimensionals, all are star seeds because we all come from somewhere else. There's very, very few people that I've ever come across that I've spoken to that says I'm an earth seed. Now I do know some of those, and what their commitment is when Gaia decided that she was going to place her consciousness into this planet, that they said, hey, I'm going to come along as a support. And so they have been with her through even the gaseous states, with the rocks, with the formations of everything, and to where they have evolved to where they are now. And I have been told by those individuals, we finally are here, that we can walk through this ascension process with her, and then we'll go back to doing whatever we were doing before. And that doing whatever they were doing before was actually a star seed. But there are many people who do claim, I came in with Gaia. And I think that's very beautiful. Yesterday, we had a lady, and on the 20th, we'll interview another lady who is angelic. And so we have all these various dimensional beings. And like when I came in from a collective, and we were in the Andromedan system, but we were in a different dimension. And my soul was in a different dimensional state than the previous soul that was in here, although we had a resonance, and that soul was of Arcturian lineage. And so it had laid that energetic framework so that when I came in from the collective, I brought with me mostly those Arcturian attributes so that I didn't kind of blow up the body. And so when people come in as a walk-in, they're bringing with them their programs of the soul that have to basically go into a almost like a cocoon state, so that they can very slowly begin to imprint on the physical body. And as they are beginning to wake up, it's like there's these little capsules of knowledge that begin to wake up with them as well. And what I find so beautiful and fascinating about a starseed is a lot of times they just wake up. They just wake up to the beauty and the truth of who they are, just like with you. And you had all these phenomenal occurrences to happen in your life that brought you to where you are today. And I really am appreciative of the work that you're doing and love, I'm going to start saying, and like Bridget Holiday says, normalizing the conversation, because that's really what I'm wanting to do as well. And the whole Wish Alliance is wanting to do is to normalize the fact, because also I think that we're all hybrids. We have been hybridized throughout our existence on this planet, whether it began with the Anunnaki or whether we're looking at cellular changes and genetic changes that are occurring on the planet.
Let me throw one thing in here, because in order to normalize this, in order to really integrate what we're aware of, and most of the people out there aren't, they're sitting home watching a football game, television, shopping. Those things are great, but there's something major coming to planet Earth. This is why we're all showing up in this way now, in these forums and the Wish Alliance itself is brought out, because there's something, we are at a critical juncture. And I know that's Bridget's mission and my and Sheila's mission, but what is it, Bridget? What is coming? What do you see? What's this big moment of revelation and transformation that you see?
That's really interesting. So we're doing it now. So everybody, I think, is waiting for, like, I remember a while ago, there was like the flash, right? Like there was going to be this big like solar flash or flash. And then, then it, like people were talking about like the Rainbow Bridge and all of these things. The way I perceive it is right now, we are straddling two paradigms.
Mhm.
So we are ushering in what we have labeled the new paradigm, and we are deflating many aspects of what we have labeled the old paradigm, right? And just taking the judgment out of it, it is, you know, a 3D experience and a more 5D experience, right? But as humans, our souls are multidimensional. So within our human experience, we, at least in my perception, we hold all of the dimensions within us and we access them quite frequently, you know, in a very unconscious way if you're not yet conscious to it, right? So I think what we're doing right now is we are creating with every now moment, every decision, every manifestation, every choice, we are creating a new way of having a human experience. So
Mhm.
currently we're straddling, you know, one paradigm and another, and we're kind of playing in both, which is why everything is so intense, because when we fully move into a 5D consciousness within ourselves, there is zero intention to harm another because we understand ourselves in unity and in oneness with each other and all of existence. So a lot of the constructs, the agreed upon collective constructs and the control aspect constructs from, you know, contracts with other, we'll say other types of beings, those are no longer going to serve us. And so what we're seeing now is this gigantic mirror reflection for all of humanity, both in our individual expressions, right? Our individual, you know, human experiences, but also as a collective, it's all coming up to the surface for us to go, okay, is this still what I believe is my truth, right? Is this still who I'm choosing to be in this now moment? Am I choosing this now? Is this still serving me now? And if we could all look within, we'll use war as an example. If we could all look within and look at every, you know, sometimes maybe it's a column or cord or, you know, rope or, you know, yarn or filament, right? Thread or filament. If we could look within ourselves and our own inner world and see where we are aligned with the energy, the construct of war, and every human on the planet did it today and said, no more. I'm, you know, I'm uncreating this. I'm deleting it. I'm reimagining it. I am reprogramming it. Whatever your language is, I'm healing it. I'm transmuting it. That's a very starseed word, but which I love. But if we all did that with every aspect of our consciousness that we have adopted in that energy of war, right? Fighting, arguing, whatever you can think about, I mean, a gazillion things, right? And we just said no more, then war would cease to exist within the human experience. So what we're doing now is we're doing that on, a lot of people are doing it in a semi-conscious way, but you can dive deeper. You can just say, okay, I would like to see and be very, I'm just going to give a warning for this thing that I'm about to say. You often, I will add a caveat of with effortless ease, grace, and in a seamless way, because you can, through these kinds of experiments within your own consciousness, you could really create some ripples in your life. So, but if you can say, you know, I would like to be shown in easy, effortless, graceful, gentle, and seamless ways where I hold the aspect of whatever it is, right? And start with something smaller, right? Maybe. And it will pop up within your consciousness, right? And also maybe through interactions with other people. And you can ask that it arises within your own consciousness, that you become consciously aware of it. And when you start to do that, now you're becoming a conscious creator of your reality, right? Because you're standing in your sovereignty, your own personal power. Part of sovereignty is understanding that our reality is a creation that we have made on our own, but also co-created with others, right? So that can be a hard concept for some people. And if that's you, that's okay. You know, only accept what feels right for you now. And what is in resonance with you would be my suggestion. But if you are saying, hey, this sounds interesting, just start to play with it, because we are now getting to decide how we are going to be as a human for generations to come, right? Like, what does the human experience look like for them? We're
Well,
getting
we
to
are laying
dream
the
that
ground
reality.
rules. We're laying
Mhm.
the ground rules for what it will be to truly be human, because up until this point, we really have, I mean, there have been some great humans, of course, compassionate, loving, beautiful beings, but most humans, the ones I've met anyway, are pretty sort of angry. They're sort of ruled by their animal nature. And so that's the animal. And then the true human being can rise above, and we're all working on it, the animal body, and bring the incarnational aspect of the divine within the physical. And that's what I think you're getting at when you say the true human, the new human experience is about the abilities that we really have. We're not here to make money and do this. I mean, those are things that happen. We're here for a level of love and exchange and creativity and joy and activation. And we've never been told that. And that's why I think this conference we're doing, everything you two are doing, is about talking to the human being. What were you going to say, Sheila?
I was just going to say, as much as we're all talking about enlightenment and ushering in the new paradigm, we also, on the same hand, are talking about a new human. To quote Marie Rodwell's title of her book, this new human, because we are changing the vibrational frequencies of our human state by letting these lower vibrations go, welcoming in all the higher vibrations, enacting new light codes. And so in a couple hundred years, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the human being itself has shifted and how it's holding that higher frequency of consciousness.
Oh, right. Totally.
And so let's just talk about the value of the walk-in conference. I think people watching others talk about their integration experience, because it's really not just walk-in, but they're talking about their integration experience. How is that valuable for people who will be watching this? What do you think, Sheila and Bridget? Well, Sheila, yeah.
Whether people are waking up to the truth that they're a walk-in, or whether they're waking up to the truth that they're a starseed, a lot of times that integration process is one and the same. And the more processing, the more integration stories that people hear, and even the more stories that people hear, they're able to identify, and they're also able to learn new mechanisms to kind of anchor that energy in for themselves. And so all of these conferences that we're doing, and especially, of course, the walk-in, near and dear to my heart, because I'm a soul exchange walk-in, I want people to know who they are. And I think it's important to know who they are. One of the beautiful things that happened to me is that I ended up finding out who I was within a 6-month period. And that's kind of even unusual for a walk-in. And I was able to integrate more of that walk-in energy early on, because I did know who I was, but I also had this phenomenal support system around me. And a lot of people don't have that today. So these conferences are to say, hey, if you are a walk-in, if these stories that people are saying resonate true for you, you do have a community. It might be a virtual community, but you have a community that's out there. And we welcome everyone to come in. We welcome their stories. And we want people to know that we are just one big cosmic family. A walk-in, a lot of times people have said, well, gosh, doesn't that make this such a special, super special soul? It's like, you know what? Our souls are just like everyone else. It just depends on when we walked in. Because
and they're all special.
Different. Exactly.
Yeah, every soul is special.
Everyone.
We've all walked into these bodies, whether you were born with it. We are all embodied, incarnate. And that is a miracle. And we're
Yes.
all special. What were you going to say, Bridget, there?
I was just going to say elitism is part of the old mind construct, and
Absolutely.
we are still retaining the aspects of the mind experience within the human experience, I should say, that are benefiting us. It's not like we're deleting that, right? But there were a lot of things that we played within that will no longer serve us where we are going within our own journey now, right? So we've moved into the heart. I know there's a lot of people that will argue with me about that, but my team told me a long time ago that we are already in the, beginning of the heart journey. And, even this, when you focus in on your heart and when you listen to your heart, your life will begin to shift because you are now bringing more of your soul light into your human experience. And that soul light holds a lot of wisdom, knowledge, and, eons of existence. We're infinite, right? We're infinite creator beings. So yeah, it's amazing. And walk-ins are deeply important for the human experience. And, normalizing the conversation about these things is hugely important. Where we're going, we don't have secrets from one another because we don't have secrets within ourselves.
Right.
So these kinds of things are important.
Great. That is why we're doing this, because we are normalizing the conversation about what it is to be ensouled. I mean, you could believe whatever you want, but you can't doubt the fact that, you're more than the body. You're more than your body. There's a cosmology to the soul, as Sheila says. And so, yeah, we have this great conference coming up. Even if you don't believe this or are new to this concept or you're interested, January 8th and 9th, 2022, we're kicking off the year with a cosmology of the soul walk-in conference that Sheila is the brainchild of, because she had a vision. She wanted to tell people what happened to her. And you've heard her story, right, Bridget? You've heard Sheila's story?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Very
it's
dramatic.
amazing.
It is amazing. And that really convinced me. I mean, I've heard of walk-ins that, wow, there must be something to this, because it was miraculous what happened to her. And she'll talk about that at the conference. And she's just so driven. I know when I had my UFO experience, and I've seen a bunch of, I just became so passionate about the subject. I wrote this book, but it's just when you experience something, you want to tell everyone about it. And so it's like this with Sheila, and she's gotten me and Neil and you on board. I mean, I found you on Clubhouse.
I know.
And you were just such a wealth of information. I'm really glad you're going to be on the panel with us. And but just before we go, tell us your special mission. How do people find you? You work with people, everything you do, and more. And all. So I want people to really hear about you.
Thank you. Alan, you will always hold that special place in my heart for connecting me in with all of this and helping me step into a bigger presence within the human experience. So thank you, you and Sheila both. So you can find me on Clubhouse Mondays and Fridays. That would be 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, 12:30 a.m. UK. I'm in a club called Awake and Ascending, and there are 6 of us, and we co-create with a lot of family. The Awake and Ascending family is just growing exponentially, and we have conversations a lot like what we've had today, anything from, ascension, Akashic records, healing, of course, lots of conversations about star seeds and, the more cosmic galactic things as well. But also, you can find me through my website, bridgetreneholiday.com. That's the word bridge with a T, 1 T, Renee with 2 E's, and holiday with 2 L's. I do beyond quantum healing hypnosis, which is really a catalytic force for consciousness expansion. I also do, I offer, these are my soul work, like my service soul work, awakening and ascension mentoring, and multidimensional energy healing. And really, to work with me, if you're ready to release limitations, shift your perspective, step into your power, explore and hone your innate abilities, expand your innate connections with what I call a soul team, right? Which is all of the beings who are here with us without the human body to guide and assist us. There are friends and family from beyond the human experience, and whether that looks like your high self, which is a higher aspect of you, your high guides. Most people call them guides, but I feel them in a different way. So I just created Soul Team. Feel free to use it. But your high guides, of course, angels, ascended masters, elementals, of course, a wide variety of different beings that could be, in the star being category, and so many others, right? So if you want to learn how to connect and communicate with them, I teach that. We have a room every month on Clubhouse that we do for free as well, but I teach that in Awakening and Ascension Mentoring. But also, really all of this is, to stand within our sovereignty and to remember that we're already whole and we've trained lifetimes for what we're here to do. And all we really need to do is just get out of our own way and be gentle with ourselves, releasing all of the self-criticism, the judgment. All those things do is hold us in resistance to what we're doing. So what I'm here to do is help people shift perspectives and just remember that there is an easier way, right? And that we can choose ease and grace and, for things to be effortless if we so desire. Many of us like that intensity within our human experience. So if you like it, you don't have to shift that. But, just to remember who we are at the very core essence of our being. And that's pretty much what I do. I do have an offering right now that is available through my Instagram. So if you look up Bridget_Renee_holiday and go to my Instagram link, there is a special Beyond Quantum Healing. It'll say BQH offer in there right now for the holidays.
Great. I was just thinking as you were talking about the Awaken Ascend group, maybe we should do a special YouTube or even a Wish Alliance evening with all 6 of you. Or I would
that'd
do
be amazing.
A YouTube broadcast of all 6 talking about it. So it'd be good promotion for the Clubhouse and just expose you guys more. So let's talk about when we can do that, Sheila.
That would be
Awesome.
so good.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Should we do it for the Wish Alliance or should we?
Sure. Absolutely.
We'll do a special event and we'll broadcast that on YouTube also and through
Amazing.
Thank
you.
Bridget is also one of our emissaries with the Wish Alliance. So it'd be an honor to kind of host you guys and help promote that. Every time I hear Bridget speak, my heart just overflows. There's just something about you. You just spark all of this joy in me. And I want to share that with everybody. So thank you so much for coming today. And I also have to say, with Alan, he's kind of like this conscious voyager. He's out there on this seek mission and he brings everybody together. You're like this magnet with your hand out.
I'm a talent scout.
This magnet with this magnet.
Awesome.
So it's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sheila, because somehow I just believed in you and trusted you when I first saw you on Phil's thing. So I said, you have a story and you have potential, and I'm just happy we're all 2:00 working together. But why don't we just show what's coming up for the upcoming Portal to Ascension walk-in conference, January 8th and 9th, 2022. Start your year off with a new dimension of consciousness. That's
Can
what
you
I
allow
said.
me to share screen?
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. Sorry. So, yes, you are now co-hosting. Yes. Okay, great. And this is everyone watching on YouTube and on replays should subscribe to this. I'll put it in the chat again on YouTube, but this is what's coming up. And
so we have Bridget as one of our panelists on day 2. And I think that is going to be such an important, right here, day 2, such an important panel, because just like we talked today, we're going to talk with people who have these galactic connections that can really help to anchor that idea, and again, to use your phrase, to normalize the walk-in adventure on this planet. So we have lots of awesome speakers on our panel.
I just want to say Bridget was one of the stars of our recent hybrid conference. Yes. Or stars, was it the Starseed?
Starseed Summit.
Yes.
Right, she's a Starseed. So you can look at that on Portal to Ascension too. Yes.
So just go to Portal to Ascension, register now, and I'll offer this as I did yesterday. If you will go to wishalliance.org, get on our mailing list. Next week, when we send out our promotion for our speaker that week, there will be a code that you can use to receive 25% off of the ticket sales. And so thank you so much for letting us do that, Alan. And we're so excited. I hope that you'll be able to join us January the 8th and the 9th.
Definitely. It's going to be really exciting. And you never know what's going to come out at these conferences, because these are people not held back by social consciousness, the people speaking like Bridget and Sheila, me. We're not worried about what people are going to think about us. We're already beyond that. So we are free to just say the outrageous, the parts that maybe haven't even been heard before, when Bridget talked about that, this a true sense of being loved. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I never heard it put that way. So yeah, it's a brave mission to come to planet Earth, but it's a lot of fun. And the parties are good, and the gatherings. So,
yeah, there's a lot of joy here too.
There is a lot of joy. I know people talk about their suffering, but there's a lot of awful tragedy, but we're here to turn that all around. I think it really can be a joyful planet for everyone. We just are working through some of the back issues here, and we'll be there at some point. So thank you, Sheila, for being, both of you people are committed to transformation. And we have somebody coming up tomorrow too, right, Sheila?
Yes, we do. And I'm waiting on a confirmation because we're having to switch the schedule around due to a conflict. But we do have someone tomorrow.
We have to use that word conflict, but whatever. It's okay.
They had a new opportunity arise.
All right. I like that. Marshall Rosenberg, who taught nonviolent communication.
Yes.
Don't complain. Just say, how could life be more wonderful? So that's... But yeah, I guess there are conflicts. But thank you both, Alan Steinfeld, for New Realities, my new book, Making Contact. You can check that out. Thank you, everyone listening online on the chat on YouTube, James and Nims and my cat, of course, and my good friend Star Brother. Thank you for all tuning in and supporting this channel and these discussions. And come to the walk-in conference. You are going to love it. You've never seen anything like this, unless, of course, you were there last year, but this is new and improved. So thank you. Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you. I've
Don't you love
so
Bridget's voice? I think it's her voice, Sheila. I think it's that when I'm listening to her on Clubhouse, it's like so melodic and sweet. So yes, you have a talent.
Beautiful.
Okay. See everybody soon. Thanks.
Thank you.